Yo guys, what's up? Bill here, Classic Rock and Metal Review. Time for another episode of I Was There. This is where I just basically take us all back in time to a great concert. This will be the second show I was at, second episode. Great White opening up for Judas Priest. Philadelphia Spectrum. Spectrum, rest in peace, long gone. June 23rd, 1984. Like a lot of cities, the main venue for these type of shows. Just take it sort of the sights and smells leading up to the show, things that I had to go through and do to get to be able to go to this show. A couple funny stories in there. I'm sure everyone's got their own versions of these, so that would be cool to hear your guys' versions. Last time we did this with Ozzy and Crew, other episode. Maybe I'll throw a link down for that. And yeah, you guys had your own sort of take on that stuff. Good stuff, man. All right, if you guys can like and subscribe, there it is. You knew it was coming, right? That would be great. And let's get into it right now. So if you saw the Ozzy episode, oh, by the way, vodka, pink grapefruit, Italian soda, delish. Like I've said before, and vodka. Don't do straight liquor. I can't handle it. So, previous episode. The only reason I even went to the Ozzy show in the first place was a kid in my 8th grade homeroom class named Stan asked me to go. We just talked music, we talked horror movies. We had something in common that most people couldn't say at the time. We had Betamax VHS players or video players. And Stan had a huge collection of rare, crazy horror movies. I don't know how he even heard of them. If he was reading Fangoria or something, but leading up to the Ozzy show, we did sleepovers at each other's houses, and he would just like basically disc jockey these horror movies, like play 20 minutes of this one and 40 minutes of that one. You got to see this scene in this one. He was a horror nut, man. You know, I'm watching Friday the 13th. He's watching like Toolbox Murders and things like that. That was fun. So leading up to the Priest show, now Ozzy show I think was a Sunday night, but this show was on a Saturday night. So I'm not sure if we slept over. I feel like we did. I might have just went over his house early the next day. But we listened to music and watched horror movies all day leading up to the show. One difference was that Stan had asked me, you know, make sure your parents can at least pick us up, because his mom drove us downtown both times, to and fro last time. So my dad was going to pick us up. The ticket for this one was $14.50, which was like $3 more than Ozzy. So it was kind of like $3 mattered back then, you know. So I remember that cost a little more. I feel like the tickets went on sale in like April. Show wasn't until June 23rd. That was typical back then. You only got 6-8 weeks notice before a show. All good, everything's cool. Stan had a Ticketron connection who got him like front row tickets to some shows. And we were practically front row for Ozzy. There was no front row per se because it was a dance concert. But we were really close on the closest section on the side to the stage. Seats 5 and 6 from the stage itself. I remember Stan being upset we weren't seats 1 and 2. So he was used to some good action. Not even that lucky with the pre-show, but we'll get to that. Not even important, really. So I had paid for my ticket to Stan, you know, maybe by like May. Now, I went to Ozzy with pretty much no money in my pockets, like nothing for the merch table. So I was going to make sure that shit didn't happen this time. I was saving birthday money, and I had like a paper route or some crap. I was just trying to save everything I could. As far as the music goes ahead of time, the only thing I had from him, from Priest, was Defenders of the Faith, which came out in January. So of course I listened to that 100 times. My next door neighbor, buddy Rick, had Screaming for Vengeance. He had it since '82. I felt like I already owned it because I heard it a bunch of times and loved it, you know. It was kind of like, which one's better, Defenders of the Faith or Screaming for Vengeance? Now, obviously it's Screaming for Vengeance now, but at the time, I felt like Defenders was giving it a run for its money. That was all I had. Now, leading up to the show, I remember the only way to get records at the time was to just tag along with your parents on the way to a shopping center. Or, you know, the department stores had legit record departments back in the day. And so it was just the right time. I had money. Well, let's go. The concert's coming up. I tagged along with Kmart, which was one of the worst, you know. There were some that had great selection. Kmart wasn't one of them. And when I went there that day with enough money to buy anything, I had like $15 on me. The only thing they had other than Defenders of the Faith was Sad Wings of Destiny. And I remember walking out of there kind of like, what the hell? Like, I settled for Sad Wings of Destiny. I'll tell you, I wish I could have settled for that many great albums later on in life, because from the first time I played that album, which was that day, I loved it right away. Thought it was great. I still do. I think Sad Wings and Screaming for Vengeance are their best two albums. That's literally been since 1984. That's how I felt, and nothing's changed my mind. I remember telling Stan, and of course played it with Rick. I don't know if Rick agreed, but I didn't really care who agreed. I thought it was amazing, and I still do. Great White, I ended up somehow, I don't know if this was before then or after, but I bought their debut album which is the only album they had at the time. Just the plain black cover with the white logo. Had that on vinyl. And just like Wasted Vices leading up to the Ozzy concert, didn't dig it. I remember taking it over Stan's house leading up to the show, or maybe the day of, putting it on, because the cover's so awesome, right? And you know, if you're playing Toolbox Murders on your Betamax player, you probably love the front cover of Vices. However, it didn't take long for Stan to realize it sucks. Yeah, it was his comment. I didn't think it sucked, but I couldn't get into it. Couldn't get into Great White's first album. So, all right, now let's get a week or two from the concert. I need more money. I want to be able to buy a shirt. I want to be able to buy a program, and yes, we'll take a quick look through this, or you know what, maybe I'll just throw up some pictures of this program while I'm rambling on so you're not bored to death. This is a copy that I just bought pretty recently, and an excellent one at that. Looks amazing. But I had the real thing back in the day. So, to get myself some more money, like I had a paper route that paid me like I was helping someone else do a paper route, so he gave me $10 or $15 a week to help. I had some cheesy allowance. I wanted to go there with some bucks. My grandma was a hostess at a diner. She just seated people and worked the cashier. And she was kind of like, yeah, you can wash dishes for a day, make some money. All right, you know. So I got there at like 8 o'clock in the morning, and there was already a freaking mountain of dishes in that sink. And I worked there till 6 o'clock that day. I could barely keep up, and I was sweating my asshole off. This probably was the hardest day of my working career. And, you know, I've done like roofing. I've done like 18 or 20-hour marathon projects around my house, like building decks and stuff. Nothing compares to this day of washing dishes, I gotta tell you. Matter of fact, just thinking about it now, I need a goddamn drink. I remember those plastic cups that used to, you know, gold or red colored plastic cups that used to come. I would just rinse one out. I didn't even care what I was catching. Just fill it up with water. I must have drank 6 or 8 of them during the course of the day because I was sweating so much. It was all I could do to stay alive. I must have lost 4 pounds. The afternoon lull, I almost caught up, but by dinner time, I was slammed again. And I remember at some point, my grandma like wandered back, like, "Do you want me to help?" And I was basically like, "Yes." It was, you know, what could you do? My pride was a little hurt. I had my tail between my legs walking out of there, but I also walked out of there with $24, which all went with me to the show. But yeah, I don't know if any of you have a story like that, but I just have to get that one off my chest. Funny, classic. So, all right, day of the show. I either slept over at Stan's or went over there early that morning. Just like leading up to the Ozzy show, Stan asked me, like, "Do you smoke pot?" So I'm like, "No." Like, I haven't even had a sip of alcohol, smoked pot. I don't even know if I smoked a cigarette yet. Which probably explains why it was the last time Stan asked me to go to a show, because I was probably, in hindsight, I was pretty boring company. I remember him complaining that the seats weren't as good. I really, again, couldn't. I would have been at the rafters. I would have been fine. But no pot smoking aside, we had a listen to Priest all day. I don't think I bothered bringing my Great White record because I remembered last time I brought the Wasted record over his house. He's like, yeah, you're right, this sucks. So I didn't bring the Great White. I remember his mom drove us both ways to the Ozzy show. So leading up to the show, she's like, Stan said, my mom wants me to make sure your parents do one of the drives. So my dad was going to pick us up. So we get down to the show. It's a Saturday night. We don't have school the next day, which was awesome. This time Stan wants to venture into the parking lot, which of course is heavy metal parking lot. He knows somebody somewhere in the parking lot partying. But this is pre-cell phone. He kind of was like, looks like we're going to be walking around for maybe an hour trying to find him. Forget it, which was a good call. So off to the merchandise table. This was such a mind-blowing thing at the Ozzy show. So of course it was again. There's 8 shirts, a couple of Great White shirts, all these different Priest shirts and other shit. So now I have some money. I buy this shirt. This is a replica, of course. This is the shirt I got back in the day. Awesome. Wore the hell out of it. Wore it until it fell off me, basically. Also bought this program. Killer. Loved looking at that thing every now and then. Up in the bedroom listening to Priest. But it was so nice just having money to be able to buy stuff. Now, I do remember at the time Stan saying, why are you buying that now? I didn't know what he meant. I bought it before the show. No idea what he was talking about. Now as opposed to when? The next Priest? I didn't know what he was saying, He was someone with concert experience. I was not. When the show was over, I reached for my program, which was under my seat, and it was half soaked with beer. So, lesson learned there. We ran into a girl, I don't know if it was there, right near the merch table. So we ran into a chick from our class named Kim. Kim, if you're watching somehow by some miracle, hello. She was just an average looking, cute girl, sort of dressed down, I guess, for school, at school. But now she was in leather pants and this chain belt and all. And it was oh my God, that's Kim, kind of. Which was great, hanging out and talking to her and, with her for a few minutes. And then her, we were 14, so here comes her, 16, 17-year-old boyfriend or whatever. So, we were which of course leaves you feeling like you're Beavis and Butthead at that point. All right, so off to the seats. Stan had been bitching about it beforehand. I didn't even know how to look up a map of the spectrum or anything like that at the time, which I think used to be in the phone book, if I think about it now. So we weren't on the floor. We were on the first lower level. We were on the same side of the stage as we were for Ozzy, which was KK's side in this case. But instead of being first section against the stage or second section, we were now third section from the stage. But pretty good seats. I would say we were probably 8 rows up from the floor, maybe 10, somewhere in there. I would say probably 8 now that I think of it, because we were pretty eye level with the band again. So at the Ozzy show, that was 4th row, 6th row. Great seats. Great White comes on, and it's exactly like their album. They're good and nothing special. They play about 45 minutes. I would say about half of the audience had no response at all after a song. 20% applause, maybe 30% boos. They played Substitute from The Who, which is on the first album. That probably got them the most applause, just from people knowing it. Priest comes on. I honestly don't have a whole lot of particular memories about Priest being on there, except for a few. But the one thing I could say overall, though, the closest bootleg I have is this Definitive Jawbreaker, which I think I did a review for. If I did, I'll put the link up on it. This show is from, I think, June 1st, okay? No, I'm sorry, May 2nd. All right, so we're 6 or so weeks away. Soundboard recording. Same set list. I think the set list looks the same the whole tour. They were headliners. They played all these same songs. Possibly 2 of the songs were just flipped, but they were back-to-back anyway, so no big deal. Anyway, I'm just showing you this because this was basically the set list from the show and the closest thing I could find. Halford's voice is a little rough on this one. I don't remember any problems with his voice the night we went. But we can run down the set list quick. As you can see, that's not the point of this episode. The one thing I'll say is they started out with Love Bites, And I knew Defenders like the back of my hand. You know, only knowing Screaming for Vengeance, Defenders, and some other songs from the radio and from Metal Shop, that was actually enough to make me know 2/3 of the set list. Okay? A lot of Defenders stuff. Even that night, I felt like they were playing too much Defenders. And also, I thought that night, Love Bites is not an opener. So it's kind of funny in hindsight, you know, that I think like the same exact opinion that I have now on certain things. Anyway, Love Bites, all right, it's not the best opener. You have a natural opener in Freewheel Burnin'. It's the Defenders tour, it's the opener on the album. It's the opener on the album because it kicks your ass right out of the gates. Why would you not open with that? I feel like I've been waiting 40 years to get that off my chest. 39. So there. Love Bites into Jawbreaker. Then we get some older stuff. Grinder, Metal Gods. These songs I wasn't too familiar with other than listening to them earlier that day with Stan. Because these were not you didn't hear these songs on Metal Shop either. Maybe Metal Gods. Breaking the Law I knew from Metal Shop. Sinner and Desert Plains. I still to this day think those songs are a little too long and a little boring. They're okay, you know, but that's how I felt that night and I didn't know them. And it's funny, I've heard these songs 100 times since then. I still feel the same damn way for the most part. I probably like Sinner a little better than I used to. Some Heads Are Gonna Roll. This was the single. I remember hearing this back in December before the album was out. On the regular radio too. And liking it right away. The Sentinel's Killer. And we get into a nice chunk of Defenders material. Rock Hard Ride Free. Decent, good song. Night Comes Down. I love that. I really like that song. I always did. Liked it right from the get-go. Now, let me tell you. Disc 2 on this one. Hellion Electric Eye. The crowd up a notch when this comes on. Because it's kind of like, and like I said, I didn't even own this album. I knew how great it was. Finally! Are you kidding me? Why did it take you half the show to get to this material? Of course, Hellion Electric Eye. Amazing. The crowd friggin' loves it. Heavy Duty, Defenders of the Faith. I love the song Heavy Duty. I think Defenders of the Faith is kind of cheesy, and that I remember at the show, they were friggin' piping in the fake crowd, you know, cheering or saying the song, Defenders of the Faith, saying the lyrics, just like on the album, except it was blasting over the PA, like a version of the crowd singing that song. So I thought that was a little, I remember looking around and thinking, I don't see people mouthing these words. So, you know, this is my second concert. I wasn't, you know, I was still figuring shit out, as you can see. But I do love that song. I love the heavy duty part of it anyway. Freewheel Burnin'. All right, I already been on my tangent about that. Finally, Victim of Changes. I remember being disappointed it wasn't more. Like, what are people, like, this album's amazing. They have to be playing at least The Ripper. No Such Luck. Of course, I was unaware that I didn't know how things worked with the set list and stuff like that yet. I had no idea there was a thing called a set list at this point. In fact, it took me quite a few years to realize bands did the same set list the whole tour, which was really lame when you found that out. Then we got Green Manalishi. This one went right over my head. And when I saw them do it on Live Aid, I recorded that on my Betamax player. And after one or two more listens, I was like, holy shit, this song's awesome. So, over my head, I have to admit, at this show. But there it is, it got played. Great friggin' song. Living After Midnight, everyone knew that. Even lame Philly regular radio played that once in a while. Hellbent for Leather was cool, you knew it off Metal Shop. And then you got another thing coming, the little sing-along thing, I'm pretty sure. So that was the show. That's what I got to say about it. As far as, like I said already, the dumb opener, not enough material from Vengeance overall. Obviously, just the two songs, really. Should have been more from some Sad Wings, if I would have had my way. No Such Luck. Takeaways from the show. It was great. It was solid. Pretty much all Priest shows that I've ever heard are. And this one was too. It was a great fun time. Too much Defenders. we both agreed, Stan and I both agreed, didn't compare to the Ozzy and Crew show. And little did I know at the time, but nothing really ever would again. I have some other favorite shows of all time, but fun and great, that Ozzy Crew that I saw in January '84, the topper. Going in, I would say I thought KK Downing was the best thing ever. That flying V, of course the name KK Downing, so cool. That long blonde hair. But when I went to the show, it was like, Glenn Tipton does all those solos. Glenn Tipton does this. It was a Glenn show, you know, and I was really surprised how little KK did besides rhythms. So that was a big takeaway. Ian Hill didn't move, you know, the whole night. Holland, what you expected, and Halford was awesome. There were my the visual highlight would have probably been when KK and Glenn both went into Metallian's arms and he lifted them up in the air. I really don't remember that much else of the show. The set list was cool and all, but nothing else really special in the way of effects or anything like what I just told you. And so we left that show. This time we were only about half deaf, maybe 60% deaf, as opposed to the Ozzy show where we were literally probably on the brink of being completely deaf. You know, which was funny because we were laughing the hell about it at the time, and I guess we just assumed we'd get our hearing back, which we did. But not as deaf on this one. My dad picked us up on Patterson Avenue, and that was the end of that. Overall, killer time. Not a bad second show ever. I had just turned 14, you know, fairly recently. So that's about it. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. Next up is a real killer. Armored Saint, opening for Wasp, opening for Metallica at a probably 2/3 empty theater. You're going to dig that one, I'm sure. I got some cool tales about that one too. And if you can, there it is again, like and subscribe. That'd be awesome. Classic rock and metal, trying to break it up. The whole point of the channel was to play some stuff, do some material people don't do. Hopefully we're hitting it, filling it up. Next up, monthly haul. Talk about the albums, CDs I got the last month. And that'll do it for now, guys. Catch yous later. Have a good rest of the weekend.